Welcome to the Growth Mindset Gal podcast with your host, me, Allie Brooke. I help the everyday woman grow her mindset and spirituality in her daily life in order to break comparison to the Instagram perfect lifestyle. Join me as we navigate the stress and anxiety of our daily routines and reclaim our power to cultivate our most authentic life. Let's start romanticizing the mundane together. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Growth Mindset Gal podcast with your host, me, Allie Brooke. Happy Mindful Monday, everyone. I hope you are enjoying this Monday. We are in full swing, y'all, the school year. I know for many of us, we started way back in August, but for a lot of us, we started probably last week and we just went through our first weekend. We probably slept through most of our first weekend after the first kind of 2 days of school. And so for all of our teachers out there, welcome back to the school year. You guys got this. And I'm so glad you are taking the time out of your day, whether you're commuting to work, whether you're working out, you're going on your hot girl walk, you're doing chores around the house. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me in this wonderful conversation that we're about to have today. And I'm also so proud of you guys for using the free time that you have to inspire and educate yourself to build a better life for yourself, because we know that is the goal of the Growth Mindset Gang. So if you're new here, we are so glad you are here. My name is Allie Brooke. I'm an educator on a mindset journey and a certified emotional intelligence coach. And I've been sharing my story from life experiences, therapy, and self-development books, talking about mindset, wellness, and spirituality. And I've also had amazing guests on this podcast. Again, still, like I said last week, just another great run of wonderful guests coming on the podcast to share their expertise and share their stories in those topics as well. So I am so proud of the journey and the work you guys have been doing. Just listening to this podcast is just a step in the right direction to build a great life that you deserve to have. So for my veterans out there, hey, what's up? How you doing? How's it going? Again, as always, I'm here to cheer you on and be your biggest support system of doing the hard work that it takes to reprogram yourself in order to reach your highest potential. So always proud of you. And I'm always available for DM if you need any support and need to talk things out. And I'm here to coach. I'm here to coach you and help you out and be a great support system. And also, speaking of coaching, you guys, today is September 9th. Today is the last day you can get the 33% off the Self-Compassion Book Club group coaching program that Santana and I have developed. That starts October 6th and runs every Sunday all the way through November 24th. It is going to be 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After today, you can still register for the course. You can still register till all the way up until October 5th, but you will not have the 33% off. So if you have been thinking about it, have a little whisper and inkling towards joining this amazing program, sign up today so you get that 33% off. And don't forget, you also get the freebie masterclass of being an authentic leader that Santana and I created for you guys as a gift as well for signing up for the early bird special. And also, friendly reminder for this program, you can come in as you are, but if you want to bring in other friends as well that want to work on their self-compassion and start learning how to treat themselves better and also learn how to better advocate for themselves, just like we talked about with Allie in last week's episode, bring them in. This program is for you. And as always, I'm here. If you guys have any questions on the program, feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me an email. I'm here to help clarify anything for you. And you are, remember, investing in yourself. You are investing in becoming the best version of yourself in order to build the best life for yourself. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and listening. And I'm so excited to get into today's episode. So we have another amazing, fantastic guest with us on the show. We have Miss Niamh McAnally, and Niamh is an Irish-born best-selling author, keynote and corporate speaker, former TV director, and youngest daughter of delayed BAFTA award-winning actor Ray McAnally and actor Ronnie Masterson. Niamh has traveled all around the world and lived and worked as a volunteer in many island nations in the Caribbean and the South Pacific. In 2016, she helped a solo sailor crew his boat from Florida to the Bahamas. It was only supposed to last a month. Niamh soon realized she had found the life she loved and the love of her life. She and Captain Gary have sailed as far north as Maine, USA, and to Bonaire off the northern coast of South America. With toes in the sand and Antigua, captain and crew became husband and wife. Many of her stories are inspired by her travels on land and at sea. She now lives on the southwest coast of Florida. So when I had this amazing conversation with Niamh, she's been in so many places around the world, and we really talk about in today's episode all the lessons that you learn when you travel. And traveling can mean, going far distances or even traveling to just different places you've never been before. And one of the great takeaways that I hope you guys get from this episode, because it was one that I took away as well, is the more that you travel, the more that you learn how very common us as humans really are. We actually do so many common things. It's actually pretty funny, all the commonalities that you tend to see once you start traveling. So I loved Niamh coming on and sharing the lessons that she learned from traveling to all different places around the world. And we also talked about the importance of volunteering, because she did do a whole lot of volunteer work while she was traveling. She wasn't just on vacation. She was there helping and serving people in any way best that she could. So I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Let's get into it. Hey, Growth Mindset Gang. Have you ever been super overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed in your life due to maybe your job, your relationships, your friendships, your family, and you have all this inner turmoil and it can seem like there is no way out? I felt that way. I remember when I was on the train to work one day and I had this super influx of anxiety and I didn't even know where it was coming from. And I would talk to my friends and family and significant others about it, but I needed something more. I needed to talk to a professional. And so I started going to therapy because I realized I shouldn't live like this, and neither should you. So today's sponsor is brought to you by BetterHelp, which is here to help you. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Talk to your therapist in a private, online environment at your convenience. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network that gives you the access to the help that may not be available in your area. You just need to fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. That is 2 days, you guys. Then you schedule a secure video and phone sessions. Plus, you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. I actually used BetterHelp when I started my therapy journey. It was one of the first options I looked at because I felt like I was so busy all the time. When would I have time to go to find a therapist and then go to therapy? And I remember I took a very simple questionnaire and they matched me with a therapist. She was super helpful and useful. And I was able to text her whenever I was feeling anxious. And I was like, this is amazing, right? And I know therapy can be a little intimidating at first, and it kind of feels like dating, and you kind of go through the different aspects and motions of it. But with BetterHelp, if you're not feeling the therapist that they gave you, they will switch it up and find someone better for you. So it takes the stress from you with finding a therapist that works. And you can request a new therapist at no additional charge at any time. So join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. And let me tell you, from my own experience with therapy, it is so amazing to talk to a professional about your anxiety and have them kind of go through specific scenarios and conversations with you so you don't feel alone. And they give you helpful tools in order to take on and combat your overwhelm, your anxiety, and your stress. Because you guys know, we shouldn't be living like this, and we shouldn't be living stuck in our own heads, and we should enjoy life. And talking to a professional can definitely help with us to switch our perspective and grow our mindset. You can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/thegrowthmindsetgal. That's betterhelp.com/thegrowthmindsetgal. That link is going to be in my show notes. And if you're interested in therapy, this would be a beautiful, wonderful first step to see if this can work for you. And I hope you guys enjoy the services that it provides, and I hope that it helps you in your mindset journey. Hey, Growth Mindset Gang. Have you been struggling with finding the right health and wellness products to help you with your fitness goals? Because I've been struggling with it lately. I have been looking for ways that I can grow muscle. I've been looking for ways to endure longer workouts, especially after a long day of work. And my true goal for my fitness journey is to just become stronger and be able to survive the end of the day workout. And I have found a fantastic health and wellness nutrition brand, First Form. First Form has such amazing products that really can help us on an individual level with our health and fitness goals. Some of my favorites that I've been trying out is the Level 1 Protein Caramel Latte. Let me tell you guys, it tastes amazing. And Level 1 Protein has helped me stay fuller longer. I've been putting it in my coffee in the morning because some days I wake up and I'm just not hungry right away. And unfortunately, I have coffee, and we all know having coffee on an empty stomach ain't it. So I started putting protein in my coffee to help fill me up, so that way I don't get that anxiety crash midday if I'm just having coffee at first. And also I've been putting in my coffee the amazing salted caramel collagen powder. Oh my God, you guys. It tastes, first of all, also tastes amazing. And I can even tell the difference between my hair, skin, and nails. My skin has definitely looked clear. My hair, I've been seeing it in some mirrors and I'm like, wow, she's shiny. And also my nails haven't been breaking, as frequently as they do between the 2 weeks that I get them done. It's been helping me so much. I'm also been using the pre-workout pink lemonade, and this has been really helping me get through those after work workouts. I work from 4 to 5 p.m. and let me tell you, before this pre-workout, I would be struggling after a strength session and walking on the treadmill. I would be screaming. But now, after I'm done with my strength workout, I am still pumped to get on that treadmill and last the entire hour of my workout. And also, it tastes really good. And I've never used pre-workout before, so I was a little nervous if it's going to make me anxious and things like that. But this pre-workout has helped me so much with good, long-lasting energy in a workout that doesn't carry on beyond the gym. It's not like I can't fall asleep at night. So these products have been very inviting and very easy to use, where I've always been a little bit timid of going into protein powders and pre-workout because usually when I see them, they're kind of intimidating to look at. But First Form is such a wonderful brand. They also have vegan options as well for protein powders, collagen, pre-workouts, so on and so forth. And last but not least, I'm also in love with their protein bars, the chocolate chip cookie dough. Fan favorite of the house. Nate and I love those protein bars. We put in our bags in the morning, and that's our little snack right before we work out. So that way, because that after work workout, we are starving. So having that protein bar right before the workout helps me sustain my energy and help with my muscle growth, because those are the goals. So if you are interested in exploring these products to improve your fitness journey, the links are in my show notes. And also feel free to DM me on Instagram at The Growth Mindset Gal for any questions that you may have on different types of products. Absolutely love, highly recommend. Hi, Growth Mindset Gang. I am so excited because we have another fantastic guest with us on today, Miss Niamh McAnally. And so I am so excited for us to dive into a beautiful conversation of traveling, self-discovery, and resilience. So Niamh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself to the Growth Mindset Gang?
Thank you so much, Allie. It's lovely to be with you. Yes, I'm Niamh. I was born in Ireland. I won't give you my entire life history, but basically give you a little background. I'm from Ireland, and I grew up in a theatrical background where very early on in my life, I learned the mindset. nothing lasts forever. One thing
Mhm.
we can guarantee on is change. And it really helped me develop a mindset from an early age that anything is possible. And, we've got that chance to reinvent ourselves over and over again. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. I've had about five different careers across five different industries,
Mhm.
including, the television and theater. And also I worked in the hospitality industry for a while and I taught scuba. But now I'm focused on really I've leaned into my true calling, which is as the writer on the water. So that's where I'm at now, and I get all of my mindsets all written down in one spot.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful because I love that you're the writer on the water because you do such an immense amount of traveling. And I'm a big travel fan myself, and I always enjoy like, what am I going to learn from traveling abroad? What am I going to learn from a new country or just traveling in general? Like going somewhere by yourself and like exploring the world just within yourself and helps you find different parts of your own soul and your own self as well. So I kind of want to dive right into it. Is what are some of the huge like lessons that you learned from like traveling abroad? Like so first, like can you tell us a little bit of where you traveled and then like the lessons that you've learned?
For sure. One of the things I like about traveling is I like to go to kind of remote places. In fact, I had a nephew who at one time said to me, "Oh, I'm learning geography vicariously through your travels. I never
Mhm.
heard of like these little islands down in the South Pacific." And I did a lot of my traveling as a volunteer, which had two fantastic results. One is I got to live in community and spend longer time rather than as a tourist. And you really just you understand the mindset, you understand how people live, you can adopt the good and the bad and understand it all. But the other side of it is, as a volunteer, because I was being housed and fed, it actually cut down on the cost of traveling, so I was
Mhm.
able to go to a lot of different places. And one of the projects I did was actually to take a year out and to travel around the world as a volunteer. I started in London. I wanted to circumnavigate like by plane
Mhm.
and go in one direction, eventually right back down into London as well, which I did that through St. Bart's, New Zealand, the Australia, and all through the South Pacific Islands. And in addition to volunteering, what I decided to do was I'm going to take some side trips, things that like I had one on my bucket list. You'll love this. I had one on my bucket list forever, and a lot of people probably have it, which is Bora Bora in French Polynesia,
Mhm.
because the images are just, I'm
Beautiful.
addicted to water, beautiful, pretty blue water, amazing, right?
Mhm.
But I kept putting it off for two reasons. One is it's the honeymoon capital of the world.
Mhm.
And number two, it swallows wallets, purses, your bank balance, everything is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I kept putting it off, right? And my whole idea was, well, it's somewhere I have to go. I don't want to go, first of all, as a single female, because I'm going to feel like not good enough, maybe because I don't have a lover or a boyfriend or a fiance or a husband with me. And I would feel uncomfortable, walking on the beach with, people are all just strolling hands in hands and kissy
Mhm.
kissy. And the second part was I can't afford it. Um,
Mhm.
and then I thought, while I was on that last trip of down through the South Pacific, I said, how often can I going to have the chance to get here? So suck it up, figure it out, and find a way. And I
Mhm.
found a way to spend a whole week in Bora Bora for the price of one overnight in one of the overwater bungalows.
Mhm.
And that was through finding a little small pension on the island, getting food from a food truck. And the other part of it was, I found out when I was at one of the resorts and I was sitting on the beach and having this lunch, and I was thinking, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I looked around, the place was empty. And so much, you know what? So much for my whole
Mhm.
fear of, oh, there'll be couples everywhere. Guess what it was?
What?
Everybody was on their honeymoon, but they were back in their overwater bungalows honeymooning.
Ah! So you had the whole island to yourself.
I had been single so long. I had this thing worked out in my head, and so
Mhm.
I learned a valuable lesson from that. Never put off a dream. You
Mhm.
just don't know how often we get and find a way. You don't have to go the way that is the norm or this is what's expected or and those preconceived ideas. Take a step back and look at it sideways and that was a valuable lesson.
Mhm.
But one of the main things I think traveling has taught me has been to deeply root myself in a state of gratitude.
Mhm.
And not just gratitude if you're in a country where people have a lot less than you have, maybe in terms of
Mhm.
affluence, but just even the journey to get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you think of all the people that are affecting your life, I'm sure everybody's heard of the butterfly effect,
Yes.
where something your actions in one country can affect somebody miles and miles away. Well, for me to be able to get on a plane, think of all of those people who actually had to go to work that morning and, fuel the plane and make sure the
Mhm.
maintenance was up and running, and not to mention the crew who's on board and the incoming airport. And so that really helped me root myself in gratitude. And how grateful am I that I have this opportunity, that I
Mhm.
can go travel. And then when you get somewhere and you look sometimes in countries that would be less affluent. I just came back from Cuba recently, and
Mhm.
I couldn't believe when I came back into Miami airport and I realized I had so often taken for granted. You can go to one of the restrooms and there's toilet paper there, there's soap in the dispenser. You don't have to buy it, from a lady who's standing there trying to make a living, and find yourself in a stall with no toilet paper, that kind of thing. So there's times where you think, wow, it really, really teaches you how much we can take for granted if we're not being mindful.
hmm And that's beautiful because one of the major things, I think, because like, especially many of us, we are in America. And so we just have the American way of life. And the American way of life, a lot of it's convenience, right? At the
Hmm.
end of the
Hmm.
day. And so traveling abroad is you get to explore new places, but like you said, finding gratitude in where you're from. Also finding gratitude that you yourself were able to do this. And that was one of the big lessons that I learned. I recently went to Italy. I went to Venice and Rome, and I never traveled like across the Atlantic before. This like was a big thing. And I highly resonated with you when you said like don't, put things aside. Like if you want to go somewhere, just do it. And I remember that I was really afraid to go abroad because planes aren't my favorite. It's not my favorite thing to go on ever. But I do it and I've only flown domestic, 2 to 3 hours. Okay, I'll have a Dramamine. I'm okay to go. But I get so nervous. And I had to think to myself, but this is something I really want to do. Like my family's Italian American. Like I need to go back to the homeland. Like let's see what it can bring up. And I remember thinking, like, am I really going to let this little fear like really consume the, opportunities of just like life experience that are going to happen? And I remember that I was looking for what's going to help me get past it. And I found solutions and I went over there and it was so much fun. And I agree with you that also when I was over there, I felt such immense gratitude for like the life I created for myself. So I'm
Mm.
able to do something like this. And, it was also a great experience. I did get engaged there too. So like in hindsight, also, that was
Yes.
amazing. It was an amazing trip. That added another plus to it as well. But I
Sure.
remember just like, I remember like we just came back from a tour of like the Vatican. I mean, come on.
Hmm.
And I was sitting in like the Airbnb and I was like reading a book because we had some downtime. And I'm just sitting there, listening to the music in the piazza. And I was like, this is awesome. And that was like the moment of gratitude that you're talking about, just like sitting there, like, wow, like this is awesome. And I'm so glad I had this life experience. And I didn't, like you said, limit myself to enjoying that life experience as well. And realizing that it's totally okay to just, find the solutions to the next travel place that you want to go to. I also have a lot of, friends that are kind of also shy with traveling abroad by themselves as a woman. Right.
Hmm.
But they want to go to so many places. And I remember I was telling one of my friends, I was like, figure out find like people who've done it before where would you feel comfortable going, things like that. And I remember she went and she came back and she said it was one of the best experience that she ever had. But I do also have a lot of friends that are kind of like still shaky, right, of
Hmm.
like, what do I do when I travel abroad? Like I really want to do it, but I don't want to wait for like friends to go. I don't want to wait for like a significant other or family, but I really want to go. Do you have any advice for women that are like, I want to go travel abroad somewhere, where do I even start?
Absolutely. No, you're spot on there. And I think there's one thing that every woman I know
Hmm
has already that will facilitate it, and that is intuition.
hmm
Because I've taken off and gone into some strange places, or sometimes, people talk about should. You can't take on other people's fears on your
hmm
behalf, right? You'll find that like, oh, are you sure you should go there? Isn't that dangerous, or isn't it this, or
hmm
whatever? And that can infiltrate you. So one thing I've said to a lot of family and friends who've said to me, are you sure that's a smart idea to go there? I know I can sense a sense of intuition when and I will, I mean, you do your research, obviously. You don't go into a known area where you think, okay, this is probably not the wisest thing,
Right.
midnight in the dark alley by yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you use your common sense. But I think what we have to tap into is listening to our intuition and
Mhm.
knowing that actually we are going to keep ourselves safe. And yourself, you comport yourself in a way that you look like you know where you're going. You do obvious things where you don't stand on a street corner with a map in front of you and kind of go, oh, I look
Mhm.
lost. Do I look like a tourist?
Try your
You
best
know,
not to look like a tourist. Yeah.
right, right. I mean, those kind of things. And, there's also ways where you could, I remember once I did a solo tour, but I was actually with a bunch of singles, people I hadn't met, but that was a way to facilitate it. And I think for women traveling by themselves, the real one to kind of watch out for is the evening time. Daytime,
Hmm.
it's very easy. Daytime, you can be wandering around. If you're allegedly traveling with somebody that could be in the bathroom, they could be somewhere else, right?
Right.
But nighttime, going into a restaurant, for instance, and I've often found this. I don't know what it is about people who stand at the front of the restaurant and welcome you in. They kind of go, table for one, and they seem to shout that out
Doubt
like
it. It's like, no,
I,
no, no, no. Shh.
exactly, exactly. But one thing I would always do, well, I remember I was in Laos
Mhm.
in Asia, and I always bring a notebook with me. Now, one of the things because I write, but I keep a
Mhm.
notebook beside me as I'm ordering dinner.
Mhm.
And I often get mistaken for some food critic. And so they pay an
I
awful lot of
love
attention to
that.
me. Right. And then
Yeah.
and then like I'll take a bite and I'll go, hmm. And then I'll write a
Get
little
into
note.
character.
You know what I mean? And so and so that way people leave me alone, A, and B, I get taken care of very nicely. Thank you very much. But it gives
Mhm.
you something not to, I mean, nowadays we all have our phones, so, you can play on your phone or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think the main message is if it's something that you're really passionate about, you have to ask yourself, how would I feel if I don't do it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? What would I be missing out on? And I'll tell you, one of the trips that I was, and I won't give you a spoiler alert because it's
Mhm.
it's at the back of one of my books, but I was kind of being told this is not a good idea. It's not safe. I don't think you should do that. Had I listened to them and their fears instead of my own gut instinct,
Mhm.
I would have missed out on the most amazing experience. Like to your friend, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's like, how would my life be different? Again, back to the butterfly effect. If I didn't do this, then this part of my life wouldn't have opened up.
Right. Yeah. That's so pure also to say because when you think about it, I think a lot of the times too, women in general always try and take the opinions of doesn't even have to be traveling, just like next steps, career moves. They always ask for someone else's opinion. And I guess sometimes you want to validate it. I'm totally here for it. Let's get a consensus. But at the end of the day, like you said, like how would you feel if you didn't do this certain thing, if you didn't travel abroad to that certain place? And when you travel abroad to really anywhere, like the amount of perspective you gain, no matter
Mhm.
where you end up, it helps you grow so much as a person. Because sometimes, and I love us, we are in our little American bubble sometimes. And so, going abroad and just seeing how other people live differently could be the most minute thing. Like it was hilarious that like people eat later, like, in
Mhm.
Italy, they're eating dinner at like 9 p.m. Like I'm in bed. Like, yeah, but the nightlife was so vibrant and fun and everything like that. It was just such a different way of living. But it was so cool to see just like how other people live and to take that experience back with you and realize that there's no, I guess, like one like right way of living because people do it so differently, right? The normal, what it
Mhm.
is around the world could be completely different. And gaining that kind of perspective coming back, I was like, oh, there, like you said before, there's really no right way to do something. It's like
Right.
what feels right for you and your growth and your journey to build the best life for yourself. And what I really loved about your story too is that while you were traveling, you did a lot of volunteer work, which I think is so wonderful and amazing. So, can you share with us some of your volunteer work and also kind of give us, some lessons here of like what are the big takebacks that we have like when we start volunteering and helping others too?
Great question. One of the place actually, because it reminds me of what you were speaking about as well, of just because other countries do things differently doesn't mean it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'll give you two examples. One of the volunteer projects I did was down in Vanuatu, which is a collection of islands in South Pacific. And I
Mm-hmm.
went down, most of my volunteer work has been around the area of marine conservation. I used to
Mm-hmm.
teach scuba diving, so and I'm just, the water is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there for a month on this particular project. And while I was there, I was on this little island called Mozo, and it was for the turtles that would come onto the beach and nest, and
Mm-hmm.
then for the hatchings, right? But this little island only had 400 residents, and they
Mm-hmm.
lived in lean-tos, kind of huts, uh, and one or two had corrugated, like, the corrugated metal for roofs and stuff like that. And I was adopted by one of the local families, and
Mm-hmm.
my mama was called Mama Cecilia, and now I had a little sister called Fabiana. And I remember one day being with her, and she had it was more like a collection of huts. I mean, hers was like, a compound compared to everybody
Mm-hmm.
else. And she was on this bench, which was kind of like what we would consider a picnic bench, only, a little bit more rustic for real,
Mm-hmm.
not pretend rustic.
Yeah.
And she just threw all this flour down on the bench, and then she moved it around her hand. I said, how did she get full of splinters? And then she started making bread. And at the same time, she was shooing chickens off the
Mm-hmm.
bench, right? And I started to think about my own mother and how similar these two women were. My mother used to make bread at home. I used to sit up on the kitchen counter while she was making her bread. And although financially they were totally disparate lives and their upbringing, they were still essentially the same human being as the mother, as the heart of the family, taking care of the kids. And then she turned around to me, she says, here, and gave me a little pan with these like blobs of bread, and went inside this hut that you could see the smoke in it with cracks of sunlight coming through between the planks, if you like. And in the middle of this hut, there was a fire, and she says, "Here, pass me that." Put it down in the fire, and she moved these metal pans around in the heat of the cold, put them all on, and then she puts a kind of a lid on it, put some hot stones on top of that. So there was no like, is it, gas mark 6? Is it,
Mm-hmm.
Fahrenheit 20,
Yeah,
420?
yeah,
What is it, right?
yeah.
Just knew it. So there was an essential part of her that was very same, but the lifestyle was so different.
Mm-hmm.
But again, one thing you learn from traveling is that across the world, it seems to me anyway, that everybody's after the same thing. Everybody wants to love and everybody wants to be loved. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
is the bottom line. And so for me, it shows our commonality more so than
Mm-hmm.
what separates us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in most of the work I have done in volunteering, a lot of it has been on the ocean like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned, there was one family I was working with in the Kingdom of Tonga, and the parents were from Australia, and they ran a swim with the whale business, and their two teenage children need to be tutored and to
Mm-hmm.
have their stuff enrolled in distance learning and everything else like that. Now, I'm not a teacher. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
understand teaching. I'm not a teacher. They
Yeah.
said, oh, it's okay. They're in distance learning and we just get their assignments in on time.
Mm-hmm.
Until I got there and realized the nearest internet was a eight-hour sail away
Oh,
from the
geez.
next island. And
Uh-huh.
then I said, well, now what are we going to do? And he goes, welcome to homeschooling. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any idea? I have no clue about teaching. I
Mm-hmm.
had, I had certificates in teaching English as a foreign language, and I had
Mm-hmm.
taught in hotels on food safety, stuff like that. But what I learned too is when you're in a situation like that, if you don't have any resources, you get resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did was I went down to there was a village that had children from the age of 4 all the way up to about, what we would consider high school age.
Yeah.
And they were all learning at different stages of learning. And I said, tell you what, are the older girls learning English? And he said, yeah. And I said, what about the young ones? And he said, well, they're learning how to read. I said, well, do they have any books? And they said, yeah. Because I'm like, one of the languages I had to teach was Tongan. I was in the
Mm-hmm.
country a week and I was like, yeah, I'm not exactly fluent in Tongan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I did a swap then, and I said to the guy, I said, okay, well, if I can help you and teach the older children some English, will you lend me one of the books that the kids are learning? And so if they can say, the cat is on the mat in Tongan, I can teach that to the Australians.
Mm-hmm.
But these Australian kids were living off the grid,
Mm-hmm.
so far off the grid, like you cannot even imagine. And they had been living there from the age of 7 to about 14, 15 is when I met them. They taught me more about sustainable living. They weren't,
Mm-hmm.
trying to create this. They were actually living it, and I learned
Yeah.
so much from those children, and what they could do and not do. And those kind of things brings me back to we can just go to the fridge and get some food. They
Mm,
were out there hunting and fishing,
right.
and again, I think mostly travel teaches us to be flexible,
Hmm.
become adaptable, because not all travel goes according to plan,
Hmm.
and gives you that moment to reflect. And I was just thinking about your moment where you were sitting reading the book while you were in Italy.
Hmm.
And you know what's brilliant about what you did there? A
Hmm.
lot of people go, they visit, and it's like action packed, blah, blah, blah. And then they come
Hmm.
back and they go, oh, I missed this, I missed that. One of the techniques that I've learned to use is, while I'm in country or wherever I'm at, is
Hmm.
to stop, project myself about 5 months, 5 years, 2 years forward, and
Hmm.
imagine myself looking back on the moment and really wanting to relive it. And then waking up right there and say, I'm actually still here. And it helps me ground myself and stay present in the
Yeah.
present moment and really be mindful of
Hmm.
that. And I'm delighted you had that opportunity where you had a little bit of downtime in Italy. And because Italy is so gorgeous. I mean, there's so
Oh my
many
gosh.
amazing places to visit. And
Hmm.
you got to Florence as well as Rome, did you?
No, we did. We're gonna next time we go back. Florence definitely someplace I want to go, but Venice and Rome. Apparently, that was
Oh,
it. We were
Venice.
there for a week. We were there. We did a lot. We did everything you could in Venice and everything you could in Rome. And I agree with you that even if I travel domestically, but even if I'm just in another state, I do subconsciously always just would sit there and just take in like the moment and enjoy the time that I have, because especially as a teacher, I mean, I'm off in the summer, so I have a good amount of time to do the traveling. And so I always like to remind myself of like, because I have a job, I have the privilege of being off for the
Hmm.
summer. I get to have these opportunities. So I don't have to take off of work. I can just go because I'm already off. And I remember too, even it was I went to like Cape May, New Jersey with my family. I mean, so not that far. I'm from New York. And I remember just sitting on the beach and just again reading a book. That's where I'm at. And I just remember just sitting and enjoying the waves and be like, I'm here with my family. It's a beautiful day. And just taking those little small moments, no matter where you're traveling, to really soak in
Hmm.
how much fun you're having or the gratitude that you're having. Because I think we get so stuck in the rut of life of just the constant
Hmm.
like work, come home, make dinner, wake
Hmm.
up again, do
Hmm.
do everything else. And so when we're taken out of that, when we're and most of the moments are when we're on vacation or we are traveling somewhere, it's a great reminder to remember that yes, it's not always so fun when we're in the rut of the everyday life. But then I have to like reframe and be like, the rut of the everyday life, though, of me working really hard at my job gives me the opportunity for these amazing moments when I am traveling abroad or traveling domestically and things like that. And that kind of leads me to a point where I loved how you spoke about one of the lessons that you learned was being adaptable and being resourceful when you're traveling abroad. Because trust me, I've been to plenty of places where, flights get delayed, you
Hmm.
get lost when you're walking around, or we also had like a tour that we signed up for, it was canceled, like things happen. And so that's really good habits and kind of lessons to learn just for everyday life. So I kind of want to then dive into what are some of the lessons or things or advice that you can bring into us of learning how to be more adaptive, more resilient when we're thrown adversity, whether we're on vacation or we are traveling or kind of going through our everyday routine.
Hmm. I think for me, one of the things that I use to center myself is a belief system that it's happening for me and not to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so there's a reason this is, presenting itself. And I have to stop and say, okay, well, what's the gift in it? Or what am I supposed to be learning from this experience? What am I being presented with? And
Mm-hmm.
that really helps. It also allays the fear as well a little bit. If you
Mm-hmm.
can stay centered like that and live in the moment. There was one time I was in Vietnam and I was in a car that got stopped by, like a regular road stop. I thought it was a road stop. Of course, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
And the driver got hauled out literally across a field behind these trees by the guys in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I sat there and I sat there and I tried my what's the word I want to use? Part of my brain wanted to get fearful.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my God, what's happening? And I was supposed to be going to the airport. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to get back to the plane. I'm going to miss the plane. And
Mm-hmm.
when you project yourself into the future like that, and you get fear-based instead of staying present. And eventually I just started to say, hang on a second. I'm sitting in a car. Yeah, okay, my driver's gone and it's getting a little hot because there's no air conditioning in the car right now. But I'm totally safe. There's no threat to me right in this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I forecast an issue and get fearful about something that might happen,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll bring that into the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part I think that has helped me stay grounded, if you like, when I'm traveling. And yes, there's been some times where I've said, okay, this is a good time not to be here, and
Mm-hmm.
extricated myself, if you like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with that too, because we go into, like you said, fear-based decision making, but it's really crucial to stay in solution-based, where yeah, you
Mm,
can be a little scared and project that into the future, but what is that solving? Where
mhm,
I have to
mhm,
sit down with myself too. If like things go awry just in everyday life, or if I'm traveling, I got to be like, okay, what kind of solution though is going to come out of this? Is this the behavior that I'm doing? Is this going to help me get through the problem, or is it going to help me stay within the problem itself? And I love that you said before that you learned that, we think we're unresourceful until we're like forced to like figure it out and be resourceful.
mhm,
And I remember learning that we as humans, like, because we are so resilient and adaptable just as a species itself, we are never unresourceful.
mhm,
Sometimes fear puts us in an unresourceful state. Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the next
mhm,
step to do.
mhm,
And that's just our ego like blocking us there. But naturally, we are problem solvers, right?
mhm,
At the base of it all. So remembering that, hey, if you don't know something when you face adversity or challenge, and at first you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't even know where to go, what to do, talking yourself down and be like, okay, that's just, I'm a little scared right now. That's okay. Or I might be a little anxious. That's okay. But now let's talk about it. Let's inside your own head and be like, okay, but what can I do to solve the problem? How can I be resourceful? What person can I talk to? I mean, we got our phones. What is something I can look up? And then just realizing that we have so many resources at the tip of our fingers, especially having a phone, if we have the availability, if we have service at the time that we need to solve the problem at hand, and realizing that one of the best things we can learn is being adaptable, flexible, and resilient can really help us keep going through. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of us fear the challenge of adversity because we perceive for some reason that if we do all the right things, challenges won't happen in our life, like ever. And then all of a sudden we get shocked when a challenge or adversity happens to us. And so instead of fearing the challenge or feeling the adversity, being like, I'm going to face some challenges sometimes. So when challenges come up, what am I going to be able to do? How am I going to be able to solve the problem? And I think the way we actually react to those adversities and challenges are very subconscious, learned, conditioned thoughts and behaviors, especially coming from, our childhood and how we grew up, right? And the people that were surrounding us. And now we're an adult. Those are learned patterns when we face stress and adversity. And I loved in the beginning, it was like one of the first things I read in your book, Following Sunshine, which I thought was actually, even though it was crazy dangerous of what happened to you with scuba diving, but then when I read what happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I would have done the same thing. And I'm paraphrasing here, but I remember reading where it was like it's scuba incident, and they thought you were lost for a really long time, and they're like, we couldn't even find you. We were waiting for you to come up, and they're like, where were you? And you're like, right where you left me. You told me you told me to stay put, and I was like, oh my god, I would have done the same thing because I would have sat there and waited for them to come find me because I just do what you're told and not think like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing I'm supposed to do. And I remember reading that the guy that was in charge, he was like, why didn't you come up? Like, why you just stayed there? Why would you do that? And you simply like, that's what you told me to do. And I actually laughed out loud because so many of us are conditioned to just do what you're told and not, think beyond if there's a problem that happens, I'm just doing what I'm told. And then we get anxious because we're like, well, this is what someone told me to do. So now that's what I'm going to listen to. And I'm not going to try and think of any other things or any intuition or thinking for myself. And so I really highly resonate. I know a lot of people too would resonate with that who read it. And so can you tell me a little bit more about that story of how you're like, I just did what I was told, even though I could have been in like grave danger with scuba diving in that incident? I laughed. It was like, wow.
Well, thank you. I wasn't laughing at the time, by the way. No.
Yeah. In hindsight.
In hindsight, yeah, no, in hindsight, it's actually quite funny. And it was a big learning moment.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was my actual third ever scuba dive. And this was in Ireland where the water is a bit chilly and the
Yeah.
visibility is not that great.
The Atlantic.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so we were quite a few miles offshore because we were on one of these inflatable boat dives. And what happened was there was an instructor with me and
Mm-hmm.
there was another person. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
group of three of us. So he was in charge of two of us. And we both rolled off the back, like out of a James Bond movie, rolled off
Yeah.
the back. And it's like, okay, time to go down. Got down to the bottom. And when we got there, I realized that the other person hadn't gotten down. And he turned around to me in hand signals and said, stay here, I'll go get her. Because at that stage, I think we were 12 meters. So that's what, 40 feet, 40 plus feet, which was the deepest I'd ever been at that point in my life. I mean, it'd been deeper
I'll give you credit.
years
That's
later.
scary. I would be like, oh my gosh.
But because it was off the coast of Wexford, which is the southeast coast of Ireland, it was a little better than the Dublin Bay. And so we could actually see her fins at first. And he kind of signaled to me, said, you stay here, I'll go get her and we'll be all great and we'll start our dive, right? So I kind of literally sat down on this boulder and I went, okay. And I look around and there's a crab. Oh, that's interesting. And I'm watching this crab. And then I'm like, oh, here's some kelp seaweed. Now, this is not coral reef. This is Irish diving. So it's not, there's not a lot there. It's a bit cold. Anyway, so I'm watching these things. And then I look up and say, well, when's it? And there it was gone. And there was no sign of either of them. And it was just the underside of waves. And then I couldn't even see that. It started to get darker and I couldn't see the whole surface. And I'm like, I had totally in my head, like you said, the man said, stay here. And I had this idea in my head that people who are lost, if they start wandering around, if they'd stay where we were told to stay, they'd be found much sooner. So I thought, well, he told me to stay here. I'll stay here. Not thinking for 1 minute, like I'm one drop literally in the ocean. How are they going to find me again? Especially with the visibility in Irish diving at that stage.
Yeah.
So I sat there and I started breathing away with my tank. Those are the early days. This was back in this is the 80s. And I had no dive watch, no dive computer. I had a depth gauge that would tell me what depth I was at, and I had another gauge that would tell me how much air was in my tank. And after about, I don't know, I must have been there 20 minutes, starting to get really cold. And I thought, well, now what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I don't think there's anybody coming for me. I really suddenly dawned on me, we're like, hello, there is nobody. They're not coming for you. And I didn't know why they weren't coming for me. It was like, surely, and there's a line in the book and everybody's saying, jeering me after, saying, well, sure, of course you were like 2 rocks past the left lobster. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Anyway, so I decided to make the ascent. Now, one of the things about, for those who are not haven't done scuba diving yet, it's a very important thing, the rate of ascent with which you come up, because you've heard about the bends and also the decompression sickness. Now, normally you're watching your gauges and your time, so you're actually timing your rate of ascent, but I didn't have a watch in those days, and I didn't have a computer, and I had to finally remembered that if you come up at the small bubbles come out of your mouth and then big ones that go straight to the surface. I thought, well, if you keep pace with the small ones, because they take slower to get to the surface, you'll be fine. And I break the surface and I'm thinking, wow. And then I look around and there's no land. And I'm like, holy smack. That's when I actually got more scared than when I was underwater. And then finally turned around and went, oh yeah, there's the land, but it's like way over there. And it turned out anyway. So it turned out the other person had just couldn't get down because they couldn't clear their ears from the pressure point of view. So when they finally came and they found me, because I'm like literally I look like a coconut bobbing in the ocean, because I had a little black kind of hood on my wetsuit. They finally found me. I don't know how they did, but anyway, the instructor then had blood on his face, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what happened to him? Did he come up too soon? Or, has he got the bends? Or has he burst a lung? And have I burst a lung? Oh no, I'm talking, so I probably haven't. And then it turned out he had got kicked in the nose in this like James Bond style where you all roll off backwards off the Zodiac. He'd got kicked in the nose. That's why his nose was a bit bloody. But it did teach me that lesson. Question. Just because somebody says do it this way doesn't necessarily mean it is the right answer for you in a certain circumstance. And that taught me an awful lot.
Yeah, I remember reading that and I was just like, how many times, like people that I know, my own self with like that people pleasing tendency or like that perfectionist tendency of like, I'm always the good person. I always follow the rules. I always do as I'm told. And it was just like, that's what the person told me to stay there. So I'm going to stay there, even though I'm like kind of like in low-key, I'm in a danger, like essentially at the end of the day. And just thinking about how many times that I make decisions, like obviously not as high risk maybe as that, but just making decisions based on what someone told me rather than thinking for myself, what might be actually a better case scenario for whatever maybe stressor that's in front of me, adversity that's in front of me. That I was just like, oh, I just did what I'm told and I'm not going to look past that and not really think for myself and get kind of stuck in that narrative. Now, based on your childhood, right, you had a very famous, dad who was just an Irish actor. And I know that kind of built a lot of the narrative around yourself and how you perceived reality and how you perceived yourself growing up. And so did having that in like the realm of your childhood, impact how you made decisions like that as an adult? Did you ever see the connection between the two?
Yes, and I think one of the things, because both my parents were actors and my
Mm-hmm.
dad was also a perfectionist per se, if you want to put a
Mm-hmm.
label on it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he had taught me was to always be the best you could be at whatever you chose to do. It didn't
Right.
matter what you chose to do. But he often took that to the nth degree. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I was playing the guitar. I was a kid, and he said something. Oh, well, if you practice now, you could be the first youngest female guitarist in the world. Blah blah blah. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to be that superlative in everything. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to be a kid who plays the guitar. And
Mm-hmm.
as a result, I put down the guitar. And what I learned from that experience is it's actually a pattern. We talked about patterns that
Mm-hmm.
has been driving me a lot of my life, and where I have to now really pay attention is I made a decision either to be all in or not in at all.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do anything halfway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of work, yes, professionally, I wanted to be the best at what I could do. And I always strove to be, to climb the ladder in terms of my own skill set, let's say. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so I was kind of driven by that. But on the other side of the coin is the fact that I learned that nothing was permanent and
Mm-hmm.
that you could change and it was okay to change. Now, in Ireland at the time, it was this was before the EU opened up
Yeah.
and a lot more travel in and out of Ireland. So it was a fairly homogenous society as I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't see so much change in that respect, which is why I started to go travel in the beginning, because I had read, you'd like this in terms of teaching. There was a series of essays by a gentleman by Cardinal John Henry Newman,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on what they called it. The series was called The Idea of a University.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, what he said was that a university, it's a school of knowledge of every kind, consisting of teachers and learners from every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And at 17 years of age, I said, I'm not going to find that in Ireland at the time. Now you would certainly find it.
Yeah.
It's much more
Mm-hmm.
cosmopolitan than it was
Mm-hmm.
but back then, which is why I decided to go to Paris and join an international class there, because I thought I'm not going to meet anybody different,
Mm-hmm.
different from me. And so that was part of it. And within that, then it was like, okay, now I'm going to learn French and I'm going to immerse myself in the culture and the language. So those childhood influences, if you like,
Yeah.
did play a part. And some of them I have to question as I grow older and
Mm-hmm.
say, is this still serving me? This
Mm-hmm.
concept, this attitude, this should.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing are you familiar with Tony Robbins? I
Yes.
was yeah, okay. So I was down in
We love.
Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have had some very privileged time to be able to spend with some of his programs down in
Mm-hmm.
Fiji, and I volunteered at one of them. And they have one called Life Mastery. I'm not sure if it's still running down there, but anyway, one of the jobs there was to climb a 60-foot telephone pole, stand on the top of it, and then jump at a trapeze.
Ooh.
And yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And the girl says, right before we all started, the girl says, have you any questions? And I said, yeah, I'd like to ask if you get altitude sickness at 60 feet, but anyway, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to climb up and I got about halfway and I made a mistake and I looked down. And of
Oh
course,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
then my legs, the adrenaline started pumping through my
Uh-huh.
body. I started shaking. I went into literally fight or flight mode. I actually started
Yeah.
to freeze, right? And the facilitator was calling up to me and sort of saying, Niamh, what would it mean to you to get to the top? And that was like that drive, that perfectionism,
Mm-hmm.
profession you've got to do. And I started to have this whole rationale going on in my head, right in the middle, halfway up the pole, and saying, well, I have to get to the top. And then I thought, but I can't because I'm frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And um then she said something like, what would it mean to get to the next rung? And my brain went into, it would mean mediocrity. It would mean, so
Mm-hmm.
what? It's just that wasn't the object. The objective of the thing was to get to the top. And I failed in that. But then once I did, that whole experience where you just got to stop and people tell you take a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
in and out, and to the point now, it's almost sounds cliche, but if you actually do
It
it,
works.
it works. It actually works, right? That's why cliches are cliches.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped and I read, and then I started to listen to exactly what she had actually said, which was, what would it mean if you could get to the rung just above you?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what? What that would mean is I would be able to shift my weight from this leg that is literally wobbling and won't stop shaking. And the weight would be on the other leg. And I could actually compose myself. And that's what I did. I said, okay, I'm just going to get to that next rung, that one baby step.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did that, I went, okay, I've unstuck myself. I've unfrozen myself. Now I can do one more rung, one more rung, one more rung, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing is I actually did get to the top and I managed to bring up one foot. It's very hard at the end because you run out of things to hold on to. And
Yeah.
suddenly you're like, there's fresh air above you. You're trying to step up onto this, like, I don't know how wide it is, not even 10 inches wide. Um, and I got one foot up. And as I was about to get settled to jump for the trapeze, I fell.
Oh
Now
no.
I yeah, I fell. I literally got one and actually still have a video. I got to find that video somewhere. But as I fell down, of course, the safety harness, caught a hold
Right.
of me and I
Mm-hmm.
spun down. And when I got down on the ground, the other people who were there taking part in the same program all came, oh my God, fantastic. Well done, well done, well done.
Mm-hmm.
I was still beating myself up because I hadn't done it perfectly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there was a lady right after me who only had the use of one arm.
Mm-hmm.
And she started climbing, and it took her like, half an hour to get like 7 rungs up the pole.
Mm-hmm.
And when she got there, she just signaled to the ground crew, okay, I'm going to lean back, and now you're going to, help my to come back down to earth. When she got off and she stood up and everybody cheered, she was one of the happiest people. She was like she had just won an Olympic gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the difference in our two attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
There was me berating myself because I hadn't done it perfect. I hadn't got to the top and I hadn't jumped off for the trapeze. And she hadn't got, like, I had gone way further than she had, but
Mm-hmm.
she was being kind to herself. She was congratulating herself. She had done an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to look around. I started congratulating everybody else, and none of them felt like frauds to me. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I realized that, I thought, you're the only one considering yourself a fraud here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you now tell yourself exactly what they're telling you and embrace, they're saying you did great. You know what? Today, that was my best.
Mm-hmm.
And who's to say that tomorrow I mightn't have, got to the top and jumped off in the trapeze? Who's to say that the day after that I mightn't have fallen off after the second rung?
Mm-hmm.
And learning to be kind to yourself, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the toughest things we have to learn in life.
Mm-hmm. But it's also one of like the best things that we
Yeah.
learn. And I love, and thank you for sharing that story with us because I'm just listening. I'm just like, every time you just said a new thing, I was like, yes, yes, exactly. And what kept coming up for me when you were telling the story was just like, sometimes we really are just our own limit. Like no one else is telling us anything. Like no one else is saying a judgment or anything that's like limiting us or stopping us or something. Sometimes it really is just us stopping ourselves from our greatness, where you made it all the way to the top and you just fell off. You still did it, right?
Mhm.
But because it wasn't quote unquote perfect, then the inner critic came in and just completely destroyed your self-esteem. Meanwhile, everyone else said, like, that was fantastic. But the woman who only made it, halfway up, that was her best. And she
Right.
accepted that and she like loved the progress that she made. And really realizing that to congratulate yourself more on the progress that you made
Mhm.
rather than the outcome all the time. That's kind of like that growth mindset, right? Mentality. It's the
Mhm.
progress, not the outcome. You learn a lot more grace about yourself and you remember
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, like I'm just a human being. Like I'm not supposed to be perfect. Yes, I should always try my best and
Mhm.
learn from my mistakes and grow from them, but I'm not a robot. I'm not a machine. I'm not going to be perfect in every single thing that I do. And when you realize that, you build a better relationship with your inner dialogue with yourself. And like you said, you create a lot more grace for yourself
Mhm.
and realizing that a lot of the decisions that we make is based on a limit behavior, like a scarcity mindset of like
Mhm.
messing up or there's not enough for me or like, why would someone like me be able to do something like that? We simply limit ourselves. And once we shift that mindset, like you did, and realizing that no, like I should congratulate myself on any type of progress that I make on any type of skill, I
Mhm.
should do a little pat on, the shoulder and congratulate myself because you broke through perhaps a limit that you had. And I love every story that you tell because it is just so true of that self-discovery of the more you expose yourself to different types of options and ways of thinking and people, right, based on what you're traveling, you become like a wealth of knowledge, and those limiting narratives that maybe you grew up with start to break away, right, little by little. And it's just a great encompassing lesson that you put in your book, Following Sunshine. And I kind of wanted to put a pretty bow on our wonderful conversation. I kind of want to dive into that a little bit because I think the book, it is a memoir, but it's like it's more than that. While I was reading, because I read plenty of like self-development books that are memoirs and things like that. And there's something just a little bit more to it, and made it just so relatable and resonate a lot with it. So can you just share with us the purpose of writing this book and kind of the progress or the journey that you went through while writing this book?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yes, it's my story. It's framed through my story,
Mm-hmm.
but the absolute purpose behind it was if I can help one person, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully more, but if just one, if it resonates with one person that they find themselves in a situation, and my sharing of what I went through, and some of it, as you'll come to learn, is a little not it's not all wrapped up in a bow. It's not all fuzzy. None of us have had
Mm-hmm.
the perfect life. We've
Right.
all had our challenges, and we've been gifted with them for various reasons, and it's how we
Mm-hmm.
react to them. So that's really was my purpose in telling the story and framing it within the open-mindedness of travel, and also to show how we are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
We're all connected at a soul level, and I certainly believe that as the concept that we are souls having a human experience. I believe in
Mm-hmm.
that, and that we have that energy, and that if we can actually impact somebody else. And again, back to that butterfly effect, something we can do without knowing too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
We can have an impact on somebody to the positive
Mm-hmm.
without even knowing it. Do you know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
find out that later. I mean, that's the beauty of like a movie story almost. You have two
Mm-hmm.
people on two different sides of the world, and how they've actually interacted. And that's really my purpose. My whole purpose with it is don't put off a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Um, be kind to yourself, trust your intuition, learn from other people, and just because other people do it differently doesn't mean they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And to try and embrace open-mindedness
Mm-hmm.
and mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing you've got to pack in your backpack if you're going to go traveling, is mindfulness and
Mm-hmm.
open-mindedness as well, and curiosity. That's
Yes.
the other thing. And the other thing too is I've been very privileged to be able to, yes, I've created some of those, events for myself. I've taken the baby steps to take action. I believe, yes, in the law of attraction, but I also believe you need to take some action steps to
Yep.
fulfill your dream. It's not just I'll sit back and wait for it all to come to me. I
Mm-hmm.
think we can all do that. And I do think that when you're really sure about what
Mm-hmm.
you're passionate about, then you will find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if that's anything I want to sort of impart through the book, is to show people that find out what that is. What is it that makes you tick? That
Mm-hmm.
really resonates with you, and do that. Now, whether that is a career or whether that's a hobby, it doesn't matter. One like I said, I've had 5 different careers. One of the things I've learned is, okay, find out what you're passionate about. Okay. And then ask yourself the question, is that something I can make a living at? And if the answer is yes, pursue it and make it a career. Fantastic. If it's not, it's a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
and fulfill it in that line. And then hopefully, because not everybody can say that they're working in the job that they absolutely
Right.
want to be working in.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to, within that, we have to find there's joy in everything, and there's downside. Every job, there isn't a single job, I don't think, on this planet that there
Mm-hmm.
isn't some portion of it that's not as pretty as the rest of it.
Right.
Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
if maybe you're owning your own business, well, maybe you don't want to do the accounting part, or maybe you don't want to do the sales calls, or do you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
always a part of a business, but try and see it as a stepping stone to the parts that you love.
Which is beautiful too that you said like sometimes if your passion can't be turned into a career, it's okay that it's just a hobby because especially in this day and age, it's like everyone thinks they have to make their hobby like a side hustle and make money off of it. And I feel like a lot of that pressure to do something like that takes away, right? The joy of the hobby that you had, where yes, you can be, lucky and enjoy your passion within your career. And that's fantastic. But like you said, if you can, and sometimes your job is just paying the bills, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a job that just pays the bills, and then you have beautiful hobbies that enrich the person, the soul that you have within you to live a fulfilled life. It doesn't always have to be find the dream job and you're going to be happy for like literally the rest of your life. I think that was like the quote unquote dream that we were sold. And now we're as adults, we're like, that's not at all. Like some days it feels like that, but not every single day. And finding the beauty within the balance of like, you're going to have adversities. How do I solve it? How do I be resourceful and have the resources in front of me in order to navigate and build the life that we deserve? And it's okay that you will feel fulfilled, even though maybe some spheres of your life are always not fulfilled. Everyone thinks like, if I live a fulfilled life, my career needs to be great. My friends need to be great. Significant other needs to be great. Family needs to be great. My internalness needs to be great, right? And then everything's great. But sometimes, life can still be great, even though maybe like your career is stressing you out, but your family life's going well. Do you know what I mean? Finding the balance
Absolutely.
between the
Absolutely.
two. And that's
Yeah.
that's okay as well. So I mean, Niamh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I mean, we could talk for like honestly 5 more hours. I was like, wait, hold on. I have to wrap this up, even though I don't want to. It's just such an enriching conversation, and you have so many lessons to share and such a beautiful story to share. And I'm halfway basically through your book, so I'm excited to finish the rest of it. And thank you so much for writing such an amazing book. And again, taking the time out of your day to come on the podcast and share your wonderful stories with us. So where can the Growth Mindset Gang find you, follow you, get the book, all those great things?
Sure. Well, the best place is actually through my website because then you'll find everything. And so the website is called thewriteronthewater.com. So we decided to call it that because A, that's who I am, and B, it's a lot easier to spell than my actual name.
It is very Irish, it is.
Very Irish Gaelic name. And also then you'll find all the links to all of my different social media like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter X and, and LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, but that's where it is. And then at the moment, we'll have the book out and ready to rock and roll. And oh yeah, one of the other things is I actually recorded it as an audiobook as well.
Love that.
So I have 3 books on the go at any one time. One is a print book to read outside in the sunshine because it's easier. And 2 is a travel book, which is a Kindle version. So you can go anywhere you want and you have loads of books on it. And then the other one is an audio. So when you're either working out or you're traveling or any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so we recorded the audiobook as well. So I really enjoy doing that as well. So
yeah, that's so exciting.
So the best place really to reach out to me is thewriteronthewater.com. And also I do, that's very Irish. I also give writers workshops as well. I've done those in person and via Zoom and everything else like that. So that's a big thing that I know a lot of people find that it helps them on their journey, even if they're just journaling or if they're creating sort of a family history. You don't have to go out and lay your soul bare like I did in this memoir. You don't have to air all your dirty laundry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's great because I think I agree that a lot of people that are going on this journey, like doing writing workshops, is actually very therapeutic, whether you wanted to make it an actual book or just learning how to articulate your thoughts, like you said, with journaling to really build, when you are very well articulating your thoughts on paper, it really resonates internally as well. So, I mean, thank you so much for all the services that you're going to provide people in the book as well. And I love the audiobook. It's like, cause I'm a podcast girl as well. So an audiobook too, I'm like, yes, I can listen to the book too. So I love that. So accessible as well. And again, Niamh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. And it's been lovely chatting with you. And I love, obviously, your audience is great, like-minded people.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Niamh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so many amazing stories from your travels. And if you guys want to connect with Niamh, make sure to check all her links in the show notes. Check out her book, Following Sunshine. It's such a fantastic book, and I'm only halfway through it at the point of recording this, so I cannot wait to finish the book. And if you guys love this episode, make sure to share with a friend who really needs to hear it. Make sure to share it on your story and tag Niamh and I in it as well. Let us know your major takeaways. Follow and rate me on Spotify. Rate, subscribe, and review on Apple Podcasts. And again, this is my last time saying it. This is the last day you can get the 33% off the Self-Compassion Book Club group coaching program that Santana and I have developed. Today is the last day to get that 33% off and that free masterclass to be an authentic leader. Registration, though, is still open all the way until October 5th. So excited to join you guys on this journey. And remember, guys, grow your mindset and look how far you'll go. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.